Dali na kamo, magbrigada na ta.
Sadyang kay buti ng ating Panginoon, magtatapat sa habang panahon. Maging sa kabila ng ating pagkukulang, biyaya niya'y patuloy na laan. Katulad ng pagsinag ng gintong araw, patuloy siyang nagbibigay tanglaw. Kaya sa puso ko't damdamin, katapatan niya'y aking pupurihin. Dakila ka, O Diyos, tapat ka ngang tunay, magmula pa sa ugat ng aming lahi. Mundo'y magunaw man, maaasahan kang lagi, maging hanggang wakas nitong buhay. Kaya, O Diyos, ika'y aking pupurihin, sa buong mundo'y aking awitin. Dakila ang iyong katapatan, pag-ibig mo'y walang hanggan. Dakila ka, O Diyos, tapat ka ngang tunay, magmula pa sa ugat ng aming lahi. Mundo'y magunaw man, maaasahan kang lagi, maging hanggang wakas nitong buhay. Dakila ka, O Diyos, sa habang panahon, katapatan mo'y matibay na sandigan. Sa bawat bighati, tagumpay man ay naroon, tuluyan ang pag-asa kung kailangan ay hinahon. Pag-ibig mo'y alay sa amin noon hanggang ngayon. Dakila ka, O
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Sa Kinapo nga labing taas, Haring Agila na sudnong langgam, waling-waling haras sa kamulakan. May ulawan ug haring durian, lubi ug saging ugas damian, yutang gimahal sa Davao Elyo, makugihong mga tao. Ang milangko mga probinsya, mga dakbayan nagkahiusa, may gituuhan nga Dios, Davao de Oro, Davao Oriental, del Norte Occidental, del Sur, siyudad sa Davao, Panabutagong, Samal Island, Mati ug Digos, Davao Region, gipanalipdan, mga bahanding kinaiyahan, yutang tabunok, daghanang nindot, nga kapangilabuhian, garbo sa tanan ng Davao Region, among yutang nga gipangga.
City division, to thee we pledge our loyalty, our city's pride and honor, the future we will shape through thee. Hail quality education, we shall strive head, hand, heart and soul. Hard work, unceasing effort, we shall cling till we reach our goal. Let's be filled with gladness, dedication and deep commitment, for in the youth lies our nation's hope. Heaven's mission and vision, with divine guidance will never fail. The fountainhead of wisdom, through thee our nation lives. Together we march onward, prosperity. Let's be filled with gladness, dedication and deep commitment, for in the youth lies our nation's hope. For in the youth lies our nation's hope.
Halina't ating simulan ang pagkilos para sa bayan. Tumbun at magsama-sama, tumulong ng walang pangamba.
Sa school tayo pumunta, sarili ay handa na, sa pagtulong walang pinipili, lahat pwedeng sumali.
Kalinisan sa ating paligid, gawing prioridad, pagandahin at pagyamanin, paaralan ay bigyang pansin.
Handang paaralan, para sa handang pasukan, para sa kinabukasan ng ating kabataan. Di ba't ang laking kawalan
sa kaligtasan ng ating bayan, gawing prioridad.
Katawan ay pagtibayin, kalusugan ay bigyang pansin. Handa para sa handang pasukan, para sa kinabukasan ng ating kabataan. Brigada Eskwela, tulong-tulong sama-sama. Brigada Eskwela, o diba't ang saya-saya. Brigada Eskwela, tulong-tulong sama-sama. Brigada Eskwela, o diba't ang saya-saya. Tara na!
Maayong buntag sa tanan, karong higayon na kailangan nato ang atong partnership sa atong Brigada Eskwela para sa atong opening sa klase sa September 13, 2021. Unya, ginahangyo nako nga magkaroon ta og partnership. So, pag naamoy gusto nga kanang ma-improve diri sa eskwelahan, unya ginaawhag nako tanan nga mga alumni, mga ginikanan ug mga LGU nga intawon pag magpakabana ta kay para ni sa kaugmaon sa atong mga anak, sa atong mga learners. Karon po mga higayon na mao ni ang mga adlaw kun diin kita makipagtambayayong sa atong eskwelahan kung unsa man gikan sa ginagmay anto sa pinakadako nato nga maambag para ma-prepare gyud ang atong eskwelahan sa atong opening sa atong school year 2021-2022. Sa inyuhang tanan, congratulate nako ang ilang principals, ang mga maabtikon o makugihon nga mga maestra. Kung diin, handang paaralan para sa handang pasukan karong September 13, 2021. Maayong bunta. God bless all of us.
Mayang adlaw kaninyong tanan. One of the most beautiful sights to behold that fosters humility and admiration is the convergence of the members of the community into one working team, all in one, bringing into tangible action the true essence of bayanihan. And this is what Brigada Eskwela is all about. The usual and generous support of the various stakeholders in the community, comprising the private institutions, the local government units, the parents, practically everyone who shared their time to do volunteer works and shared their resources prior to the official opening of the new school year, was truly heartwarming. However, this year, same as last year, will remain a deviation from the traditional Brigada Eskwela. The continuing suspension of face-to-face classes is also a continuing implementation of the distance learning modality. And this does not mean that Brigada Eskwela is placed in abeyance. We have to continue. There may be no physical works and presence of the stakeholders in the different schools of the division as legitimate show of support and assistance, but this year's Brigada Eskwela program focuses on collaboration and strengthening partnership engagements. This is in consonance to the implementation of the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan with the theme, Bayanihan para sa Paaralan. This year's implementing guidelines emphasize the collective efforts in promoting collaboration for safe living and addressing social issues and concerns in schools, at homes, and in the community. Other than strengthening partnership with our valued stakeholders, this year's Brigada Eskwela will also give importance to Brigada Pagbasa, still a beautiful collaboration among education partners and experts in making sure that our learners will be given adequate educational attention despite the challenges and a distancing learning platform. There's no stopping Brigada Eskwela as education continues amid this global pandemic. Reiterating once more that this year's Brigada is different under the new normal. The adherence to the IATF protocols must be strictly observed. That any physical presence requires physical distancing with consideration to the existing community quarantine guidelines. And with the continuing support of our stakeholders, all this time, my sincere appreciation. Without our stakeholders, our Brigada Eskwela will never come to life. Daghang salamat sa tanan. And so, makibayanihan na po para sa paaralan.
You're way too beautiful, girl. That's why it never works. You have me suicidal, suicidal. You say it's over, that moment's beautiful, girl. They only wanna do you dirt. They'll have you suicidal, suicidal. You say it's over. You started out chill at the dark, oh, when you took my heart, it's when we fell apart. 'Cause we both thought that love lasts forever. You say we're too young to get ourselves sprung, no, we didn't care. We made it very clear, and they also said that we couldn't last together. Say it's very divine, girl, you wanna a guy, but you rush out my mind. You want to get declined, oh Lord. My baby's driving me crazy. You're way too beautiful, girl. That's why it'll never work. You'll have me suicidal, suicidal. It's over, damn all these
This year's Brigada Eskwela takes on a new platform. At its backdrop are word analytics such as challenges, resilience, strong future, better organization, distance learning modalities, training of teachers, learning opportunities, and learning mechanisms. From our critics, the word analytics perhaps are weak education, not ready, will never be ready, divide us, they are always better, and we can never match their expectations, and so on and so forth. Leaning heavily on what we have accomplished this recent school year with the strong leadership of our very formidable secretary, Leonor Magtolis Briones, the undersecretaries, assistant secretaries, bureau and regional directors, superintendents, school heads, legislative and local government leaders, stakeholders, alumni, the heroic and creative pursuits of our teachers, and every individual who has the indomitable faith on the Filipino children, then we can do better, certainly, than the past. We build better as lessons learned from the past will now give us confidence. This year's Bayanihan para sa Paaralan and in Region 11, Davao Region, having a subtitle, handang paaralan para sa handang pasukan. Will showcase nothing less but the best of strength and the best of character and the best of faith on our Filipino children without fear of being thwarted by even our strongest doubters. The strength of this nation is seen on how it takes care of its children. This we shall never downplay. This we will never diminish. We commit to building that strength by building our children's future. Together with our very beautiful Assistant Regional Director, Maria Ines Asuncion, the 11 Schools Division Superintendent and Assistant Schools Division Superintendent of the 11 Schools Divisions of Region 11, led no less, of course, this afternoon by our President of PAS Region 11, SDS Ju Fadol, who is also our divisional host, together with the mayor, whose namesake is as strong as his heart, of the city government of Tago, Mayor Alan Rillion, Vice Mayor Eva Lorraine Istabilio, and the members of the City Council, and our provincial governor, led by Governor Edwin Jubahib, ably represented by architect Liumel Puerto, who played host to this year's Brigada Escuela National Kick-Off Ceremony. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to contribute a piece of our humble contribution to that building of a nation. To all of you, together with our faith in the children of tomorrow, as we want to see a better tomorrow. Tara na, magbrigada na, and we will build all together a very beautiful future, weaved by our strength and our collective effort, as we will build the future beginning today. Maraming salamat. Madayaw Davao.
Magandang hapon sa ating lahat. I don't need to review anymore the accomplishments, what has been done with Brigada Escuela, and why it has become an institution, a major part, a major program of the Department of Education, where the entire community gathers together and helps out in whatever way each member can. The preparations which are always necessary for the opening of school year as well as the ending of school year as well. And I have seen for the past 4 years what Brigada Escuela has done for places where there have been very special challenges, like in Marawi or in Batangas, where we had a series of natural disasters, volcanic eruptions, floods, and so on, and how the entire DepEd family has come together to help each other, and not just our particular region. Our experience with Marawi has been very moving and very touching. This was one instance where each region adopted a particular school or a particular place in Marawi. This is one instance when we decided to accept all children, whether they are documented or not, in any of our schools. And we accepted also all teachers who made backward to various places in the country. This is an instance where we promulgated policies which were not the usual policies, but which we knew was necessary to make education continue. And such experience with Marawi has helped us in dealing also with the very difficult challenge of the current pandemic, wherein we accept students who transfer and who enroll, where we make adjustments in our ironclad regulations and rules and memoranda because of the uniqueness of the situation, and where we have to adjust our learning tools, our learning strategies, our learning materials, etc., everything, because the circumstances are different. And where we really committed ourselves to the motto that, which I said in the United Nations at the time that I assumed the office as Secretary of Education of the Republic of the Philippines, that education must continue. Of course, we are continuing education at a time of imperfection. We expect perfection and say, why do we lack this? Why don't we have face-to-face? We lack supplies, etc. Our teachers are suffering, our parents are suffering, etc., etc. We cannot have a perfect system with very imperfect situations. And also, it's not only imperfect situation, imperfect environment, but also unpredictable environment. You will recall that early this year, we were allowed, the president made a very important decision early this year to allow us to initiate a pilot studies in face-to-face learning, because we ourselves saw that face-to-face is a very important component of the learning process. And the cabinet voted unanimously to allow us to initiate face-to-face classes. And then without warning, the UK variant emerged. And now at the time when the president is listening to feedback, to data and reading data that we submit to him, results of researches, etc., what's happening, experiences of other countries. Now that he is also softening towards the idea of pilot studies, now we have the variant, which is even more threatening, more dangerous, and perhaps more vicious. And so we have to adjust all the time. And let me repeat again, we cannot demand or expect perfection in very imperfect and unpredictable environments such as we are facing right now. One of which, of course, is the financial aspect. In a matter of a few weeks, we're going to present already our budget. At the time when our economy is shrinking, when our GDP is not as we would wish it to be, at the time when there is greater demand for ayuda, for assistance to our people, we need more money, but we have less money at this time. And so this should not, as I said, this is not cause for blame or for finger pointing at this time, because many aspects of planning, of perfection, of perfect grammar and perfect spelling may not necessarily be predictable at this time. So I have been asked to recite to you what should be our call to action now that we are launching the Brigada Escuela. Brigada Escuela is the start. And as I said, I congratulate Yusek Tony, his faithful staff, our different offices, our regional directors and our SDSS, all of us in DepEd, I would like to congratulate them for forging on in spite of the challenges. So what is the call to action? For me, the call to action that I would like to share with you is to stop all this noise of finger pointing and blaming. Let us go on with what we have, what we can do, what we are able to raise. We all know that this new variant was not produced in the Philippines. It came from outside. We all know who brought it in. And that is also very clear. We all know what are its characteristics. And so these are the factors that we have to deal with as we struggle, as we try to deliver the constitutional mandate of quality education for all learners, and not just for those who can afford it. So let us stop all the finger pointing, all the blaming, etc. Let us focus on our work in the Department of Education. The President has already agreed that he will allow us to open schools on September 13. Let us keep a very close watch on how developments turn out, because as you know, we are keeping a very strict eye on the national capital region for obvious reasons. And we are also worried, of course, about Visayas and Mindanao, because the variant has somehow entered Visayas and Mindanao through a southern city, not through NCR. It's not a creation of any political administration. It came from outside. And we say, why were they allowed to enter, etc., etc. But let us look also at what is happening in the other countries. So one, let us focus on the challenge that we are facing. Let us not forget our motto, our call that education must continue, that education has to be for all and not just for NCR or for Cebu or for the North, but also for the entire country. Now, also, the second challenge which I would like to share with you is we must learn from our experience last year. Last year, we did things for the first time, and we were beaten up because the expectations, as I said, was perfection. But this was the first time we had to face a challenge, the way we faced the challenge last year. Very unpredictable environment, very noisy political circumstances, as well as a series of natural disasters and a virus which refused to be disciplined and which refused to be kept out and which entered our country nevertheless. But we learned lessons here on the use of materials. We learned that it's not only the Department of Education which produces materials, but there are also those who produce materials and sell them in the name of the Department of Education. We learned, for example, that there are those who produce obscene, bastos, or politically inappropriate material and blame it also on the Department of Education. We learned that it is so easy to blame and demand and demand and demand under very, very difficult circumstances. But we also learned that we can continue. We also learned that we can adjust, and we were adjusting along the way. One of the biggest challenges, as you all know, of course, is the matter of assessment, because we cannot assess the performance of our learners the way we used to assess the performance of our learners or assess even the effectiveness of the new, not really new, of the blend, the mix of learning techniques that we were endeavoring to put together. Suddenly, we had 100 million experts on education who were never satisfied with what we tried to do. And so we learned from that. This time, as we move on to September 13, we will be watching every day as advised by the Department of Health. The risk assessment is still very crucial, whether we have face-to-face, whether we will use a particular approach or not, whether our students will be allowed to go out. And we are also watching what is happening in other countries. We are frequently told, for example, that all countries are already doing face-to-face. This is not necessarily true because I have distributed, I have shared material from the Department of Foreign Affairs where all the countries are listed and the extent to which lockdowns have been occurring in school. We are not the only country which might go into this response for education. To say that we are the only one without face-to-face, I don't think that is accurate because we have been watching what our neighboring countries, our neighboring ministries of education are also doing. What is happening in Thailand, this is a surprise. What is happening in Indonesia, in Malaysia, and even in Singapore is a surprise. So, hindi naman tayo nag-iisa with the kind of problems, with the kind of challenges that we are facing. So, pangalawa yan, we learn from the past. Third, we must innovate because like it or not, the world is still moving along. Like it or not, technology is still changing. Even as we are struggling with this pandemic, even as we are trying to learn more about this virus, which is so terrifying and which is so horrifying for many of us, and we demand, as I said, perfect answers, perfect actions, and endless amounts of resources. At the same time, as I said, we have to innovate. We continue innovating. We continue learning from what the lessons that we learned from the past. There are those who take advantage of the situation of the Department of Education. Not everybody is suffering right now, and I'm sure you will agree with me. There are those who are benefiting from all our difficulties. There are those who are selling materials in the name of the Department of Education. There are those who deliberately create materials which will discredit and put our reputation as a department to question. And again, I'd like to repeat, for those who are not familiar with the imbroglio we had with the World Bank, it is not a question of personal pride on the part of the department. The year 2000, PISA was established. We joined PISA in 2018. From 2000 to the present, there were 7 secretaries of education. The present Secretary of Education made the decision in 2017 that we would join not only PISA, but all the other international assessments, which we were not participating in. And that I would like to emphasize. When we joined in 2018, some of you are aware of it, the results came out in 2019. In 2019, I presented to the President and to the Cabinet the results of the PISA examination. and the other examinations as well. And that is how Educalidad evolved. This is how Educalidad emerged, because I said we have to pivot towards quality because the results are coming out. 1 month before the results were officially announced, I already informed the president. And immediately after the results were announced in 2019, we had a series of webinars, we had a series of press conferences, and we had publications explaining and analyzing the results of PISA. We never denied the results of PISA because in the first place, we asked for it. We were the ones who dared to look into the mirror and ask ourselves, mirror, mirror on the wall, are we really the best in English? Are we really the best in mathematics? What is our status? We did it for the first time. And all of a sudden in 2021, 2 years later, the very same report came out. And for those of you, most of you are PhDs and master's degrees, you cannot respect academic work, those with supposed advanced academic training, to submit work that is dated where the data is already dated, where there are several aspects which are not taken into consideration. One, the World Bank has been with us since 1944. Two, we have a right to demand high quality reports, not 2 years behind reports. Na report na yan, inulit lang. And because we are owners, co-owners of the World Bank. Maliit lang yung stock natin sa World Bank, but we are subscribers of the World Bank. When the World Bank was initially organized, and this I would like to share with those who are taking public international finance, we contributed $990 million in 1944. At the time when our people were starving, I don't know how we raised $990 million to help set up the World Bank. And now the value of our subscription in the World Bank as co-owners is $14.6 billion US dollars. And this is why we have the right to demand good reports, timely reports, and, fair reports. So it's not a question of personal pride, because immediately after we exposed that error, World Bank sent me a personal apology. And I said, no, it should not be a personal apology because it was published and spread all over media about how we have failed in education using data which we knew all the time 2 years ago. And those of you, SDSs, you principals, you graduate students, you knew the results of PISA as early as 2019. That is when you were doing your graduate studies, when you were doing your term papers, when you were learning about PISA and earning your doctorates and your master's degrees. Alam ninyo yan. And kung hindi ninyo alam, I think we should review your curriculum in your schools. So this is just an example of a very tough lesson which we learned and from which we emerged victorious. No less than the Secretary of Education made a complaint to the World Bank in Washington. And the apology of the World Bank in Washington is not directed to the Secretary of Education. It is directed towards the Philippine government because it is the first time that this has ever happened when a report was made public without consultation with the concerned country. And so, those of you who read about Balat-Sibuyas, Cibriones, no, it's not personal. Because nag-apologize naman sila sa akin personally, immediately. Because they knew that I am a scholar. That I teach public finance. That I know what methodology is. That I know how data should be used. even for term papers or whatever. So anyway, so let us learn from the past, and we have learned from the past. There will be forthcoming meetings na naman. There will be forthcoming reports, etc., etc. And so that's the important thing. Third, we should review, since many of us, teachers, many of us have master's degrees, we have doctoral degrees, we write dissertations, etc., etc. When data is submitted to you in social media, which really terrifies you and which makes you angry, we should ask yourself, saan galing yung data na yan? How credible is it? Ano yung methodology na ginamit? Because that is what you are trained for as teachers, as graduate students. And I'm very, I would really be very pleased if you take that extra effort. So, ayun, learn from the past. Look at data which is given to you, or information, all those dramatic, terrifying data which is given to you, all those threats which is given to you. Ask yourself, saan yun ang galing? How truthful is it? How honest is it? Sino ang nagsasabi ng information na yan? So ako may advice to you, those of us in the DepEd family. The DepEd is a member of the IATF. And so every week, sometimes twice a week, the IATF meets and reviews all the information. We have several groups of experts, hindi lang isa. Aside from those who do data analytics, kung nag-analyze ng data, ng gumagawa ng mga predictions, then you also have the scientists, the researchers, the one, and then you also have a group of those who are treating mismo the disease itself. And so they know what is happening. They know exactly kung pumasok na sa ganitong lugar ang ano. And so, I don't know, I'm sure many of you will not take me seriously. Why don't we trust official data for once? And take a look at all those information, those alternative information which is given to us, and ask ourselves how true, how accurate these data are. At saan ang galing yung mga data na yan? Because the DepEd is part of the IATF. We submit data to the IATF. It is chaired by the Department of Health. You have, as I said, the data analytics guys. You have the doctors. You have the genome specialists. Those who look at the sequencing of the viruses, and those who do counting. Those who do, limang grupo yan na iba't ibang klaseng disciplines. And then they argue, then they debate, and then they make recommendations. So let's try to take them seriously as well. So in closing, I'd like to repeat, because I have been instructed by to focus on these points. One, as I was saying, let us act together. Let us move together. Let us focus on education together. Two, let us learn from the experience of the past. Last year, we did it for the first time. We were criticized. We were laughed at by those who were outside who claimed to be experts. We are still around. International institutions tried to downgrade us. It did not work at all, because you have to have a very strong basis for conclusions about the country. So we learned from the lessons last year, and there are lessons aplenty. We are not saying that it was perfect, because it would really be unrealistic to expect perfection from a very imperfect environment as we are undergoing at this time. And it's very easy from the outside to say, why are we not doing this? Why are we not doing that? We should do this, we should do that. Try getting inside. And for those who say, why are we not doing this? Maybe we should also ask, how did you do it during your time? If the past was your time at this time, how would you face these problems at this time? How did you face those problems during your time? And how did these problems develop during your time? So that would be good questions to ask. So learn from the past. Thirdly, innovate and prepare for the future. Because the future is changing. The future is changing. Technology is changing. How many of you have seen, of course you have watched the movie, many of you have watched the movie Lord of the Rings. What did Galadriel say? Galadriel said, ano bang sabi niya ni Galadriel, yung prologue ni Galadriel? The world is changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. Much that once was is lost. For now, none live who remember it. The world is changing and we have to accept, and we have to be prepared to have imperfect answers to a world which we cannot predict. One of the books that I am reading right now, which I highly recommend to most of you, is we are preparing our children, our learners, for jobs which we don't even know exist. Under the present system, you train your child mathematics so that he will be a good engineer, to be a good doctor, to be a good lawyer. But we don't know in the future how good will a doctor be. Maybe a gadget that is attached to the body of a person might be faster, might be more efficient. How good will a teacher be? Maybe other countries are already considering robot teachers who can monitor and who will know immediately what the reaction of a child is, whether something is registering in his mind, whether he is learning, etc., etc. Which would be better, a robot teacher or a human teacher? A robot, a gadget attached to the body of a patient, or a doctor himself? What kinds of jobs will be necessary for the future? And this is why we need to teach our children critical thinking, aside from the usual mathematics, tables, etc. So all of this, again, sabi ko, to summarize, let's get our act together. Stop criticizing each other. Stop complaining because you demand perfection, perfect, quick reaction, etc. Enough resources, money. I was amused by the song of the teachers, money, 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 money. I don't know if there was a message there in that song. We in Social Watch would sing and dance to that song whenever our country would borrow money from the lending institutions. Anyway, so we act together. Secondly, we learn from the past. We have had 1 year of experience, 2 years of experience already. Thirdly, we innovate. We cannot continue doing things the way we did. We cannot think the way that we are thinking and doing and reasoning right now. I always joke, and Tony knows this. I'm the oldest in the Department of Education, but I have the youngest ideas. And this is why we have a future study group. Because we don't know what kind of jobs we are preparing our children for. We don't know what kind of technology we are preparing them for at this time. So let's get ready. Let's do what we need to do. And let us rely, as I said, and do not be afraid. Many of us are afraid. I already recited to the past people yung litany of fear, which is from Herbert, na sinasabi na all of us are afraid. And many of us have, sabi natin, mental health problems of our children. It's not only our children. Many problems are surfacing, which we have to deal with in addition to teaching and to being in the Department of Education. And I already recited the litany against fear by Frank Herbert. Let me recite to you a verse from Psalm 23. Just one verse. I know the entire Psalm 23, of course. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me, in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We are now walking in the valley of the shadow of death. We are scared of the variant and all the other variants, but we should not be afraid. Thank you. Amen.
Maayong adlaw. Welcome, dear stakeholders of San Roque Central Elementary School. Bayanihan is a Filipino culture that turns common people into heroes. Today is one of those many occasions when Filipinos across the country gather, or if not, help virtually this new normal time and prove as what the Sulong Educalidad defines, that quality education is a top priority and commitment, and that education must continue. However, given the country's current situation as it faces a health crisis caused by the pandemic, Brigada Eskwela will deviate from the traditional concept of physical cleaning, repainting, and minor school repairs, and instead give priority to preparations and enhanced partnership to ensure that quality basic education continues despite the challenges posed by COVID-19. That is why the school wished to receive support from our LGUs in the hauling and distribution of modules to the respective poroks, allowing us to utilize barangay halls as one of our enrollment booth and campaign for more enrollees. Preparing hygiene kits for stakeholders and parents is our concerns too. Hence, we would be glad also to receive donations like face masks, alcohol, hand sanitizers, and other protective gears to ensure the health and safety of every parent and stakeholders as they visit our school to receive and return their modules come opening of school year. With this year's theme, Bayanihan para sa Paralan, we look forward to a brigada that showcases more community involvement, strengthens partnership, and provide our learners with good learning environment. More importantly, we look forward to a Brigada that exceeds the usual outcomes and sets the bar for volunteerism a bit higher, and a Brigada Eskwela that focuses on the preparations and partnership activities that will support the implementation of the basic education learning continuity plan, including the multiple learning delivery modalities. Daghang kaayong salamat, mayong adlaw pag-usab. Tara na, Brigada na ta!
Tara na, brigada na! Brigada, eskwela, magkaisa, sama-sama. Brigada, eskwela, salin na buong barkada. Brigada, eskwela, kilos na pagbayanihan na. Ikaw ako.
Sadyang tayo'y sinubok sa matinding hamon, sa pagbabago ng panahon. Ngunit di patitinag, tayo ay susulong. Magbayanihan, hawak kamay tayo. Ikaw, ako, lahat ng Pilipino. Brigada, eskwela, sa gitna ng pandemya, tayo'y di uurong, palaging susulong para sa edukasyon.